Hi everybody, Dazz here, coming back at you. I hope you guys have been enjoying these readings. I've definitely been enjoying sharing them. So today we are going to continue with another episode in The Black Woman, an anthology written by Tony Cade. Mentioned this was published back in 1970. I'm going to apologize for my lighting today. No sunlight is coming my way. It's been that kind of a day. But I do not want to not have to post a new reading for you guys, especially if you have been following and have been wanting. So I say, you know what? It's not that bad, right? It's not too bad. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it. Hope you've been great. Title for today is going to be The Black Woman as a Woman by Lindsey. So I hope all the black women out there will click a like because this is about you. So listen in. The Black Woman as a Woman. Okay. As the movement toward the liberation of women grows, the black woman will find herself, if she is at all sensitive to the issues of feminism, in a serious dilemma. For the black movement is primarily concerned with the liberation of blacks as a class and does not promote women's liberation as a priority. Indeed, the movement is for the most part spearheaded by males. The feminist movement, on the other hand, is concerned with the oppression of women as a class, but is almost totally composed of white females. Thus, the black woman finds herself on the outside of both political entities in spite of the fact that she is the object of both forms of oppression. Before abolition, black people were referred to as slaves. No other designation was necessary, for our place in society was strictly enforceable. Since abolition, and now that the institution of slavery has ceased to exist formally, those who define us in this society recognize the need to categorize us in increasingly sophisticated subgroups so that we become not only good niggas, bad niggas, and crazy niggas, but the black man and the black woman. Classifications and categorizations of groups of people by other groups have always been for the benefit of the group who is doing the classifying and to the detriment of the classified group. The original sin in this context was the separation of the sexes, which on the surface appeared to be merely a division of labor with respect to each sex capacity to do certain types of work. The fact of childbearing and the supposed physical limitations of the female being the rationalization for this division. This theory cannot be supported in light of the many contradictions in different societies where the roles of men and women are the reverse of the ones which have been known and which have been promoted in our own lives. A more realistic theory would be that out of the supremely human frustration of attempting to close the gap between our physical limitations and our boundless imaginations, men attempt to co-opt other human beings in order to extend themselves. The temporary incapacitation of women in pregnancy and childbirth offered men the opportunity to use women as their extensions, and in doing so devoured the consciousness of women, robbing them of their potential autonomy. From females, men moved on to children. Out of this grouping, the family evolved. The family and the land on which it lived and cultivated its crops became the man's property, which was protected and defended against all comers. From protection and defense of his property, men moved on to the seizure of the land of others, and his prisoners of war became his slaves. Upon this base, the state evolved and empires were created. That there are parallels between being a man and woman and being black has not been denied, but that there are parallels between the black woman and the white woman has always been resisted. And the black woman has been set apart consistently from her white counterpart. We have instead been considered as a special subgroup within the black community, which black men should try to deal with as their own private extensions. This is an illusion perpetrated on the black man in order to deflect him from the task at hand, which is not to create a domestic niche for his woman, but to recreate society at large, a task involved which involves direct conflict with the white agency, which at the very least would overturn all its institutions, including the family. The family, as a white institution, has been held up to blacks as a desirable but somehow unattainable goal. At least not in the pure forms as that whites have created. Witness the black middle class or pseudo-escapees into the mainstream. This group has assumed many of the institutional postures of the oppressor, including the so-called intact family. But even here we find a fantastically high divorce rate, and the frustration on this domestic level has increased dissension between individual black men and women, when it should instead be a signal that something is radically wrong with the model they have chosen to imitate. A latter-day effort, and more superficial for all that, on the part of the white agencies to encourage the acquisition of property among blacks via black capitalism, which the idea took hold, would probably serve to further intensify the stranglehold on women as property. The family has been used by the white agency to perpetuate the state, and blacks have been used as extensions of the white family, as the prisoners of war enslaved, to do the dirty work of the family, that is, the state. If the family as an institution were destroyed, the state would be destroyed. If black people were destroyed, but the family left intact, the basic structure of the state would allow for rebuilding. If all white institutions, with the exception of the family, were destroyed, the state could also rise again, but black rather than white. To be a black woman, therefore, is not just to be a black who happens to be a woman. For one discovers one's sex sometimes before one discovers one's racial classification. For it is immediately within the bosom of one's family that one learns to be a female in all that the term implies. Although our families may have taken a somewhat different form from that of whites, the socialization that was necessary to maintain the state was carried out. Our family life may have been said to parallel our educational opportunities, and that we only need to finish elementary school or high school to get the kinds of jobs which are open to us, and we need only about 12 years of living within some kind of family situation to learn our sexual roles completely. Our first perception of ourselves is of our physical bodies, which we are then forced to compare with the bodies of those with whom we live, mothers, fathers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, and whomever. Our clothing or the kinds of play, activity we engage in are reflections of the lives of those with whom we live. Treatment at school reinforces our sexuality, so that by the time we reach adolescence, we as the black women have perceived our role all too clearly. One discovers what it means to be black and all that the term implies, usually outside the family, although this is probably less so than it was, as the need to politicize all blacks, including children, has become so obvious. But until recently, the child had only dim revelations about her color within the family, and it was only when she moved out into the community and the opposition and reaction of whites to her gave her insight into her place racially. The oppression of blacks by white is not softened by the same kind of rationale that the female encounters with the male, and if she has not been taught by her family that to be black is to be political, she experiences extreme frustration and anger as she wades through the racial experience in an attempt to learn what is going on. Most women, shackled by the limitations imposed on their behavior because of their sex, are afraid to explore their condition much beyond their school years and go on to fulfill their biological destiny as determined by the male. Among the jobs open to women of all colors, it does not take long to realize that black women are expected to be primarily mothers, domestics, and prostitutes, teaching social work, clerk, typing, and other office work are possibilities if one has managed to finish high school or college. An inordinately high proportion of black women become welfare mothers, usually without a husband, and in the household at least. And while the white agency outwardly deplores the absence in the household of a father figure, it does not take long to realize that the state has created an artificial family in which it, via the welfare check, takes the place of the husband and can thus manipulate the family more directly. Large numbers of black women earn their living, either part or full-time, as prostitutes, the most outrageous and flagrant form of sexual oppression, in which an individual is forced to sell her body on the basis of both sex and color, rather than use her mind to survive. Black women who spend their working lives not only as mothers but also as domestics are yet another instance of black women penalized on 2 counts and forced into roles which are extensions of those of white women. Where the white woman is the wife, the black woman is the mother on welfare and the bearer of the future workers for the state. Where the white woman is the call girl or mistress, the black woman is the street prostitute. Where the white woman is married to a man who can afford it, a black woman takes over the care of the home and children for her. In short, to be a black woman is to operate almost totally as a physical body without the inducements offered her white counterpart. While white females are sexually objects, black women are sexual laborers. White females are the tokens among women in this society in that they have the titles, but not the power, while black women have neither. Although black women are frequently described by the white agency in terms that suggest power, such as strong, domineering, and matriarchal and emasculating, as was suggested earlier in this article, when we are defined by those other than ourselves, the qualities ascribed to us are not in our interest, but rather reflect the nature of the roles which are intended to play. But the dominion of the kitchen and the welfare apartment are hardly powerful vantage points. What we truly are as women, or as black women, or as human beings or groups in an unknown quantity insofar as we have not determined our own destiny. We have an obligation as black women to project ourselves into the revolution to destroy these institutions which not only oppress blacks but women as well. For if those institutions continue to flourish, they will be used against us in the continuing battle of mind over body. Think about it. Think about it. And that was the black woman as a woman. See you guys next week.